You have arrived at Laughbox, the podcast for the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor. We are so excited you're here.
Welcome to Laughbox, the official podcast of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. I'm Jim Bob Williams.
And I'm Katie B.
And today we're going to be talking to the coach's coach, Karyn Buxman.
Yay!
So Karyn, it's the fall of the year and we're thinking about football and football coaches, basketball coaches. So tell us, what do you do for coaches?
Thank you for asking, and I'm so happy to be here with the two of you. We get to see each other once or twice a year. Yeah. In between, it's like we don't get to hang out so much. So thanks for inviting me. And what do I do for coaches? One of the things that has really been my passion, humor. For those of you who don't know me, this has been my journey for over 35 years. Yes, I started when I was a young child and started out as a research project. I was going back to grad school and I had to do research and a thesis and a project, and they wanted me to look at something that was not nearly as exciting. I think it was the locus of control of eating disorders of adolescent children, which is a great topic. But then I stumbled across this little piece in a journal that was just a thumbnail description of a nurse researcher, Vera Robinson, who had done her dissertation on humor and Native American Indians. And it was like, what? A whack upside the head. You can research humor? And I started delving into that. And so it was the concept that something so wonderfully delightful and energetic and joyful and fun could be delved into is really what sucked me into this process. Now, it's not what kept me there, because once I started recognizing the benefits, the powers, this whole holistic piece, physiologically, psychologically, socially, emotionally, spiritually, how this could help people around the planet, I'm thinking, why isn't everybody talking about this? This is crazy. And so that has been the importance of the journey. That has been why I continue to do what I do. And along this process, both of you have been part of this wonderful organization, the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Both of you have been part of the Humor Academy, which is this specialization within our specialization, and really understanding at greater depths and levels the power of applied and therapeutic humor, and how to really embrace it, and how to practice it, and how to help others with this. And so the thing that I love about AATH and the Humor Academy, quite selfishly, is that it feeds my just voracious appetite to learn. I love learning. I love creating. And this is my ability to bounce ideas and hear other ideas and from just around the world. And in so doing, I recognized several years ago that, and Jim Bob, I am getting to your point. This is a very long, windy road. Hang on, you give somebody the microphone who's a speaker.
It's a local, it's not the Express, that's fine.
But I realized that what's like, why aren't people embracing this? Why isn't everybody jumping on this bandwagon? What is holding people back? And it occurred to me that a lot of the pushback that I was hearing is, it's nice, but it's not serious. It's fluff. It's a nice to have. It's not a need to have. And I realized that was because people were only looking at the part of humor that has to do with entertainment. Yeah. And entertainment, who doesn't love to be entertained? We love being entertained. We love entertaining others. All three of us enjoy entertaining other people. And yet, it's entertainment is seen as a commodity. You can go to an improv show, you can go to a comedy show, you can turn on a sitcom, you can do all sorts of things that are entertaining. And a lot of it is free. Why should I have to pay for it when there's just such a plethora of it? But when I really started looking at why would you use humor besides entertainment, I realized that there was two other areas that really came into focus. And those two other areas, in addition to entertainment, are influence and well-being. And in terms of well-being, we're looking at coping mechanisms, we're looking at resilience, we're looking at mental health, we're looking at physical health. And this was probably the part of humor that was really looked at more intensely in the beginning. The whole field of psychoneuroimmunology and Norman Cousins and his book Anatomy of an Illness, and then The Healing Heart, and the people who were looking at how can this improve our bodies in terms of inflammation and in terms of our brain health and all sorts of wonderful things there. It was a little bit slower path, I think, to recognize the power of humor in influence. And by influence, how do you persuade? How do you educate? How do you motivate? How do you inspire? How do you negotiate? All of these different kinds of assets. How do you educate? All of these things fall under the umbrella of influence. And that is a very powerful thing. That is not a commodity. Being is not a commodity. Our health is not a commodity. These are the kinds of things that carry a lot of significance and a lot of importance. And along this path, this is where I started looking at the coaching process and how can coaches help other people, because they are influencing, they are persuading, they are enlightening, they're helping people reframe, they're helping people develop insights. And a great augmented way to do that, a great asset for them, is the tool of humor, because humor can do all of those things. We know it can bring down the resistance. We know it can lighten the mood. We know it can. I was just talking to somebody this morning in a coaching session, and I said, "Did you know that stress makes you stupid?" They were like, "What?" I said, "Makes you stupid." It does. Let's stamp out stupid, use humor, because our brain can only hold so many things at a time. And when we are under duress or stress or overwhelmed, and we have so many things up there, when we're trying to inform somebody, when we're trying to teach somebody, when we're trying to connect with somebody, even if they are willing, even if they want to, if their brain is too full, they simply, and so how can we help them recapture that space? And so for all of the reasons above, I was like, oh, this is really important. And the beginning of this was with my friend, our fellow CHP, certified humor professional, Sue Stevenson, because she's just a brilliant coach. And I've been coaching for a number of years, but she just takes it to another level. But it was like, how do we put our peanut butter and jelly together? How do we put your chocolate on my peanut butter? And how do we mix that all up? And for those of you who don't know Reese's Peanut Butter Cups commercials, that is not a sexual inference. I'll come back to the other point. But we were looking at that, and we created a white paper around that, and looking specifically for coaches. And just recently I began teaching humor as a skill set for coaches. I held one last spring and realized I didn't have nearly enough time. We went from 4 weeks to 6 weeks this time, and now I'm thinking it really should be 8 weeks. And the other thing that surprised me and delighted me, quite frankly, is as I was letting the world know that I'm doing this for coaches, we're providing this missing piece, I started having people apply. And when I said, "So what kind of coaching do you do?" They said, "Oh, I'm not a coach, but I think this would be great for my staff. I'm a manager, I'm a leader. I think that this would really be helpful in engaging them and communicating with them." I started having professors sign up, and they were like, "Oh, I want to be able to connect with my students and with my colleagues and my peers." And I realized that what we have here as this wonderful tool is definitely an asset for coaches and for anyone who is a professional listener, which is a lot of people.
All right, spoiler alert, the Venn diagrams of leadership and coaching overlap. Okay.
Yes,
You know,
yes. And so
unless you are a dictator, you have to influence and persuade and coach to get better performance from your direct reports and whatnot. And
yes.
you have to use the same tools when you're negotiating inside and outside the company that you work with. So it's a powerful tool that can be applied several different ways.
Can I take us to those people who may have been at the conference last year or may not, and talk about why Karyn is important in that way? Because Karyn, you were the keynote speaker, is that right, at the conference?
Yeah.
You gave an amazing speech, and anybody that was there would surely agree with that. And so I just wanted to let the folks out there know that's who we have with us today, and who also is running year 3 of the Humor Academy. So when you take the Humor Academy, Karyn Buxman is your amazing teacher for year 3. So
yeah, I love this journey. And there have been so many amazing people who have been part of this journey. And we look at people like William Fry and Paul McGee and Vera Robinson and Doug Fletcher. And these are people who, are no longer with us, Patty Wooten, these people who really dedicated their lives to humor. And I'm very proud to have known them and to be carrying on this message, and also to be passing this along so that when I'm too tired to throw my bag in the overhead luggage compartment and I just don't feel like pulling up the Zoom or the microphone or whatever that may be, I want people to be able to carry this forward, because I feel like we are at a point in our field of applied and therapeutic humor that we're not exactly new. We are starting to be more accepted.
Yeah.
I think it's becoming more commonplace, but the opportunities that are in front of us, oh my gosh, that just gives me goosebumps, because there are, pick a field, pick an interest. Humor can benefit. And the recognition from around the world. Katie B is part of the coaching event that I'm doing for 6 weeks. And I have to tell you, I was so humbled to have somebody from Hungary, have somebody from Malaysia, have somebody from Canada, have people from around the United States. God bless Azmi from Malaysia. When we were talking about this, and I said, this is going to be at 9 o'clock in the morning, my time. What time is it for you? And he said, oh, it's midnight. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. It's not going to work out. And he goes, oh, no, I will be there. He goes, it's really important to me, because this is an unknown in my part of the world. And he wants to bring this to the people in his area. And in Humor Academy, we've had people from every continent except Antarctica, because I'm just guessing Antarctica doesn't have a sense of humor. But in terms of the rest of the world, people are starting to recognize the power of humor. And quite frankly, I cannot think of a time in our history of mankind, maybe the Middle Ages. That was the Dark Ages. That was Dark Ages. We're not having any black plagues at this time. But I tell you what, it can be very discouraging for many. And I think that what we have almost sounds too good to be true, but it isn't.
It isn't. Because the science is finally proving. Karyn, you're a neurologist. Not exactly, but you're
I'm a neurohumorist. And so I combine the science of neuroscience, applied humor, and we throw some positive psychology in there, a little axiology, we throw a little emotional intelligence. There's all these different things that we're pulling together for this beautiful tapestry. And I talk to people around the world, and I understand the loneliness that many people feel, the disconnectedness, which isn't it ironic that in a time where we've never had the ability to be more connected with technology, that people are feeling more disconnected than ever. And people worried about the political climate, people worried about the global climate, people worried about their financial and their physical safety and their health, and so many things that are vying for space in our brains that are, it's just setting brains on fire. And when our brains are on fire, we cannot tap into the problem solving abilities, the creativity, the brilliance and genius that people have when they're instead feeling in fear and in threat. And I think that I truly believe, my TED Talk, it was called How Humor Can Save the World. And I do think that this is something that is so outside of the box. It's such an outrageous thought. But why not? What have you got to lose? Laughing a little bit, enjoying yourself a little bit. Oh, that would be a real bummer. And in the meantime, improve relationships with others, improving your health, improving your happiness, improving your success and your significance. Who wouldn't want some of that?
Now, I believe you set a personal record of consecutive appearances, giving keynotes and platform talks, and never missing a gig.
A little known fact.
Yeah.
Yes, over 35 years, I have never missed a gig due to travel. There was one event that my dear friend Kathy Passanisi did for me. My mom died one day before an event. But other than that, I've never missed an event. Although I will say I have gotten more and more cautious, especially with travel these days. Oh my gosh, before 9/11, travel was actually fun.
Yeah.
Not fun anymore. But yeah, with climate change and other kinds of lack of pilots and blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
whatever, I allow myself plenty of time to get stuck.
And people don't give themselves enough margin,
Yeah.
and they don't give themselves enough time to relax and be in the moment. So if we want to meet that schedule, we want to check off the little things on our to-do list. But that's the difference between being effective and being efficient.
My mantra is come early, stay late. Because I love connecting with people and I love connecting people. And the more people I meet, the more people I can connect. And so yeah, I know that some people are like, oh, I just want to get in. I want to get in and get out. But I love what I do. What's the rush? Why not come early, stay late?
And I love what you say at every meeting, which is, I'm going to be here till there's nobody left in the room. I love that.
I'm going to be here till I outnumber you.
That's right. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I want to stay. I want to be the last one to turn out the lights. So that works well. But what about you, Jim Bob? What are you doing in the world to make this world a better place through humor?
I am trying to use humor wherever I can. Okay. And I'm doing a little feelers with the local community here. I live in a small town in West Virginia. In my initial goal, I thought I was going to be a consultant on applied improv for corporations, corporate trainer type thing. Just not enough gigs available locally, and frankly, too much energy and investment to try to go coast to coast on it. So I said, all right, what can I influence? So there's a rehab center here. So I did a 6-week class on humor in everyday life, and I did it for a men's group. And then they asked me to come back, and I did it for a women's group. These are all people in recovery, different stages of the process there. I said, that was pretty cool. And I gave a talk on library. I am now working with the senior center, again, taking the same principles there. My pet project right now, and I haven't decided if I'm going to try to make this a presentation for next year's AATH. I guess I've got till the end of the month to decide.
You got to keep it 10 days.
Yeah, the idea is humor, improv in the fourth quarter of life.
Ooh.
And that as a senior, recently recovered from hip surgery, I found that the principles of improv apply to everyday life, and they especially apply to everyday life as a senior. So
I love that.
You don't have to be a professional improviser, but you should be aware of the principles because they could get you through some hard times. Okay.
What I love about that Jim Bob, is that applying those principles to life. I have said for a long time, if we just followed if everybody on the planet would follow 2 rules of improv, we would make the world a happy place. To be saying yes and
Mm.
instead of immediately shutting another person down doesn't mean they have to get their way.
Yeah.
You're not shutting them down. And the other of trying to make the others in your troop, your family, your team, your group look good, to raise up the tide of all boats. If everybody did that, oh my God, we would change the world. So keep doing what you're doing. And I love that application to folks in recovery, because I think that that's a tough road, and learning those principles can really improve the quality of their lives and those who they love and love them. Katie B, what about you? How you changing the world, girl?
I just started teaching joyful yoga, which is hatha, kundalini, and laughter yoga combined at a rec center where the families of mining companies, this is their country club. And in October, I'll be doing my first stress relief workshop with the staff at the rec center, and there will be mining company, I think HR people coming in to experience it too, so that maybe we can branch that out.
Yes.
And Tuesday, I will be at a school at a parent teacher night showing the possibility of building bridges, which is laughter yoga and applied improv to combat bullying, loneliness, and suicide ideation. And hopefully maybe some of this shooting business. Yeah. I don't know. That feels really heavy and scary, but
Yeah.
I'm going to go in with the tools I've been using. And this time I get to approach the Apache Nation as well as the Latino folks, and then mining families that are here in the area where I'm at, and have been doing this. This is a year-long experiment to see how these modalities can help with loneliness and how they can affect small towns. Can we make a small town happier? Which is actually the theme of my talk that I applied for AATH. So a number of things. And then the last thing is I'll be doing in October a workshop called Talking with Strangers, which is how to approach strangers for fundraising, meet new people, networking, and do it with humor and feel comfortable doing it, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable with strangers, and that's for adults, by the way.
And I'm signing up for that because I love that. And today, as we mentioned before, we're so connected via technology, but we're so disconnected from one another. And what some of us who have a few years on us find so comfortable talking to somebody that you've never met before, just the very thought of it causes some people, especially younger people, such anxiety and discomfort, and they don't know how to do the simplest communication.
And something I learned when I was on the Tour of Joy, and I went to New York, for example, to this Eastside Institute for Social Therapy, who's hosting this Talking with Strangers event on Zoom. And I had them doing the compliment car wash. And I didn't know people were so uncomfortable with getting compliments, and they don't know what to do with it. And I had people crying before they went through the line and crying after. And it turned out to be really beautiful for everybody, but the stress level at the beginning was quite high. And that was a huge learning thing for me. And maybe you have something to say about that, Karyn, with all of your studies. But I just find it so interesting that we don't know what to do with a compliment.
I think that a lot of people, their self-worth it may be comparison of others. It might be how they were socialized or taught or treated as children or as they're growing up. But I think a lot of people do have trouble accepting a compliment because they themselves don't believe it.
Yeah.
And my parent thought, you don't want to appear vain. Or I remember once when I said something nice about myself to a group, and a couple women came up to me afterwards and they were like, isn't that pretty egocentric or something like that. And I was like, it ain't bragging if it's,
That's right.
I'm okay with it. But you don't want to sit there and just brag on yourself, but it's okay to see your value, to see your worth, and I think to acknowledge that in others. Maybe if we do that more, that people would become more comfortable with it. And I think that's another thing with tying that back to humor and to be listening. People want to know, how am I going to know what to say? And how am I going to know what kind of humor to use? And they're a complete stranger. And a lot of this is connected to your power of observation. But if you're an observer and you're not thinking about what you're going to say next, but instead observing, what can you notice about that person? What do you hear? What did you learn? Whether it's something on their t-shirt or the way they wear their hair, or something that you overheard them say, or what they're buying in the grocery line. Now, my husband Greg can be a little overly aggressive sometimes, but he'll grab the National Enquirer and talk to the checkout person who's never seen him before, like that Oprah is having a Martian's baby, something like, so, they either put up their clothes sign on the lane or laugh with him, but that connection through laughter, and also to be able to be in tune enough with that other person to listen beyond the laughter. And that's another coaching skill.
Yeah.
Is somebody using humor? Are they using it to connect? Are they using it to entertain? Are they using it to deflect? One of the wonderful things about humor is that it's a socially acceptable way to communicate anger, fear, anxiety, distrust, all of that. And the person is using humor to communicate, and the receiver doesn't get it. That person has still saved face. They can still say, oh, I was just joking. But if that person is in tune enough to listen beyond the laughter, then wow, what an opportunity to connect. What an opportunity to serve. What an opportunity to heal. And I want more people to be able to harness that.
Let's see if we can solve a serious problem in the next 5 minutes. All right. Seriously, how can we use applied and therapeutic humor to deal with the political climate in the United States? This is being recorded in 2024. If you haven't heard, we're having a presidential election.
Wow.
And future generations, historians who are going back, you wouldn't believe what's going on right now.
Oh my gosh. People will look back on this in 100 years and hopefully just shake their heads.
They'll laugh heartily, I hope.
Say, somebody made this up.
Yeah.
Crap can't be real.
Can I interject something real quick? So
Sure.
There is this guy, a musician called the Kiffness, and he receives sounds and videos of people's cats and their dogs and animals making noise, and then he makes music out of it. I got the funniest post sent to me the other day. It was a certain person talking about the fake news of people eating cats and dogs, and the Kiffness made a song about it. And humor in this political realm, it was hilarious and amazing to see that worked so well, because of course at the end of the video are cats and dogs speaking for themselves as they're still alive. Anyway, I digressed, but I just had to share that.
That's good. That's good. And there are a lot of people who are leveraging humor in this time and space. And I'm just going to throw in my 2 cents. And that is, here's my thoughts. Right now, we are so polarized and so divided. Generally speaking, when you look at the brain and somebody has made a choice and you then try to show them proof that the choice perhaps doesn't serve them or isn't a good one or is false, studies show they will dig in deeper to validate that belief rather than give up that belief. So I think at this point in time, what I see a lot of humor doing is solidifying one end or the other. And I will admit, I have my favorites and I find the humor in what they're saying, because humor, what we find funny is what we have in common. And so we are laughing at those beliefs, those thoughts, those values that we have in common. And that makes that group tighter. A lot of humor can be weaponized. We have witnessed weaponization, whether it's making up names that are derogatory, or putting people down, or joking about someone's appearance, or joking about someone's background. The other thing that makes me a little crazy is when somebody says something that turns out to be really hurtful, and then they'll say, that was a joke, or I was joking. Headline here: if you ever have to say, I'm joking, then probably that wasn't a joke. So unless you're just really miscommunicating with your audience. So I think in this political climate that we're not going to bond with one another over political humor. I do think that when there are people who have different beliefs than we do, to help lower the resistance by sharing humor that is around our commonalities. And I think that the more and more we can recognize the more commonalities we have, so that we can see one another as human, to see one another as people, not to see someone as a red state or a blue state or a Republican or a Democrat or a conservative or a liberal. I've seen people who've made comments, blanket statements on both sides, broad brush, that I have found very hurtful from people that I thought we grew up together. I thought we had commonalities, and so we tend to generalize that, oh, since we both grew up in this little hometown, we're both going to have the same political beliefs. And I realize at this point, there's nothing I can say or do that's going to change that person's mind. It wasn't St. Francis. It's been attributed to St. Francis, but I also feel like humor is the same thing in terms of go forth and preach the gospel, but as a last resort, use words. I want to go forth and preach the gospel. My gospel is humor. And as the last resort, use words. I want to model positive humor. I want to model humor that is inclusive. I want to model humor that makes somebody feel better, not worse. And I want to help them embrace it enough and understand it well enough that they can then model that to others. Because I think that if we can, humor's infectious, it's contagious. And I think if people recognize that it isn't just for entertainment, but we can really change the world, that humor can be such an agent of connection rather than disconnection. And so that's a long answer. Again, you gave me the microphone. But in terms of politics, I think that, again, there's going to be humor that binds us together, and there's going to be humor that divides us. And any kind of inside humor is amazing. And we see that in teams, we see it in organizations. It makes that group bind stronger. But if you have inside humor, there's others on the outside. And how do you balance that so that you're not ostracizing others?
That's part of why the Tour of Joy exists. And Joy First was meant to be in the middle of both sides, to approach with joy and kindness and compliments and see what happened. Turns out politics never came up. When you thank somebody just for being alive, they laugh, and some of them say, yep, I'm still here. And then they start telling their story. And just even approaching with just that phrase, thanks for being alive today, acknowledging that we're all on this planet together, regardless of any of those outside forces, has proven to be super interesting and working. But I won't digress into because I can, but I won't into the tour. But Jim Bob, do you have a question?
Well, as a matter of fact, I do. All right, we've covered a lot of ground today. Okay. And you present a lot of ideas in Humor Academy, in your TED Talks, in your platform sessions there. So how can I use humor on? I mean, if it's just a typical everyday Thursday with all of life's vicissitudes going on there, what should I remember about humor and how to use it?
I think Douglas Adams said, it must be Thursday. I never could get the hang of Thursdays.
That's great.
On Thursday and every day, use humor as an opportunity to connect. And here's what I do every Thursday and every day that ends in Y is I seek humor from someone and then I share it with someone else. And I realized when I started out seeking humor from others and even just seeking humor, period, it's every morning I put on suntan lotion. I bathe myself in humor for 20 minutes before I go out and face the world and get hit by the harsh rays that are beaming down on me. But what I realized was because sharing it with somebody is an act of kindness, it's an act of connection. It helps lift them up. You might never even know the impact that you're making on that person. I share humor with a number of people on a regular basis, on a random basis, but I'll often hear back from the person, how did you know I needed that today? Or you might not realize what a difference this little act of kindness makes. And if you seek humor from someone every day or seek it from a source every day, it will reframe how you look at the day because our brains are wired to search for threat. And so that's what we look for. And we reinforce that by looking for the news and doom scrolling and trying to find out from the media what's the latest disaster that's occurring locally, regionally, and globally. And in so doing, we just keep rewiring those neurons and those neural pathways and those neural loops. And it takes effort to break the cycle. But your reticular activating system is non-judgmental. You tell it what you want to pay attention to, and it says, oh, okay, let me show you more of that. And if you haven't given your reticular activating system that cue, it may take a while to grease the engine of that and get it started, but don't give up. Don't go through a day and go, there's proof that there's nothing funny happening in my life. The next day, what am I missing? What might be occurring? Over here, some of you heard me tell the story about I was in a clothing store trying on a pair of jeans, and the woman in the dressing room next to me, I never saw her face, but I heard her call out, good Lord, if this dress were any tighter, it would fit me like a mammogram. That was the funniest thing I'd heard all day. I had to stop, write it down, stuff it in my bag, and then I promptly forgot about it. But I'm so happy that I wrote it down because a couple of weeks later, as I'm digging at the bottom of my bag, I found that. And then I put it someplace that I could save it. We are so wired to search for threat and things that might harm us that it's at continually seeking humor to rewire the brain. And the good news is you train your brain just like you train algorithms on the internet. The more you pay attention to something, it doesn't say, oh, this is good or bad. It's just, I'll show you more of that. And that's what I want my brain to show me. I said something on LinkedIn the other day because someone was so discouraged that every time they brought up one of their social media feeds, it was just negative. And I said, you've trained it to do that. It's like your brain. Start training your algorithms that you want to see something positive. Keep putting those words in that you want to see something positive. Look for positive stories, look for humorous stories, and eventually it's going to say, oh, I'll show you more of that. And that's exactly what your brain will do. And then you won't be saying, oh, there's nothing funny happening in my life. You're going to be saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe everybody else is missing this.
And can we talk for briefly about your new neuroplasticity work?
Yeah, master neuroplastician. I love learning. And this last decade has been deep diving into not just the information, but the application of humor in the brain. And we have this wonderful book, Sheila. What's Sheila's last name? Who wrote Kinnison. Yes. And you guys interviewed her. I did listen to that. So those of you who are listening to this, you can go listen to that one too. And she wrote this book on the cognitive neuroscience of humor, which you're not really interested in. It's not like a gripping drama, and it's not going to hold you like Lord of the Rings or something. However, for a geek like me, I love it. But when we really look at the application, when we understand that the different ways that we give input to our brain and the response that we get and the type of neurotransmitters that we evoke under certain circumstances and how that reflects in the type of response in our body's immune system, in our body's emotional responses, in our brain's responses, and the gamma wave patterns that we can create. It's just all of these different things within the brain. Because for so long, especially back in the olden days, when I had to walk uphill both ways to get to an AATH meeting, when we look back then, we knew the benefits, we knew what the responses were, but we didn't really understand why. And now the more we understand the why, the more we can reverse engineer that and say, oh, wow, if we want to experience a decrease in cortisol, then we're going to want to increase the response that we get from the parasympathetic nervous system. And to do that, we're going to want to trigger things that are lowering the effect of stress. And oh, we can use humor to do that. And we reverse engineer that, and we see the brain's response and how it benefits. And quite frankly, I think it also gives us, we're growing the credibility and the validity in our field, that this isn't just somebody's idea, that it's my opinion. And science does evolve. And there's the numbers with some of the studies will be growing and are still small numbers. We can't say absolute causal relationships with a lot of things, but we can see trends, we can see correlations. And I actually was interviewing Bernie Siegel the other day.
Oh,
He wrote Love, Medicine, and Miracle. He's now 92 years old. And the thing I loved about Bernie when I was first introduced to him back in the late 80s was now he's seen as a role model. Back in the 80s, everybody, including Oprah, was throwing him under the bus.
Yeah.
It was just that people didn't believe in mind body. It was like, that's woo.
Yeah.
That's those people on the left coast, those hippies, that believed in that stuff. But he said at one point, because he was sharing lots and lots of stories, and he said, doctors complain because I don't have quantitative evidence. He said it's qualitative. But as my stories go from tens and hundreds to thousands and thousands, that data in itself then becomes quantitative. And I think that's something that we also see with humor, is that we just have this growing body of people who are sharing their experiences, teaching their experiences, duplicating the experiences. I just was part of a study with UCSD. It was a qualitative research study by a group of nurse researchers out of UCSD. And they brought me in as their expert. And we did a qualitative study on how and why nurses use humor. And it was just published in the American Journal of Nursing, which is the largest journal in nursing profession. And from there, one of the indications was that we would benefit from having what's called a nursing theory, which is kind of an underpinning or foundational piece that then people build their evidence-based practices upon. And so that's currently what I'm working on. That's my goal for next spring at AATH is to do a breakout on the role of creating a theory of humor in a profession and what are the ramifications of that, because I think we just continue to build and build and build and build.
And can I build on your talking about algorithms and changing the brain and all of that relating to neuroplasticity? It's all related.
Yes. Yes, because when we have the wonderful thing is that humor, by its very nature, connects the disconnected. That's what we find funny. If it was already connected in the first place, it wouldn't be that sense of aha. But we're connecting the disassociated dots. And in that connecting of the disassociated dots, we are creating new neural pathways. We are creating this neuroplasticity, which increases our ability to problem solve and increases our ability to have a greater vision, to be able to see into the future. And so this whole piece in terms of building our cognitive capacity by creating these new neural pathways is the basis of neuroplasticity. And the more we do it, the more we can rewire our brains, build newer and healthier pathways in our brains that will serve us rather than hinder us. And we have over 65,000 thoughts a day. And that's on a good day. And 90% of those are non-conscious. And of those, about 95% of those are negative.
Hmm.
So taking the time to be intentional. And one of my mantras is it's great when humor happens spontaneously. It's great when it happens by choice, but let's also make it happen by chance. And not by chance, just by choice. It's like humor by choice, not by chance. It's being intentional about it. And that doesn't mean having to be funny, but in the ways we talked about. How can we leverage it? How can we look for it? How can we share it? How can we harness it? Just, I see things everywhere and just think about how does this come into play? And in the other room, somebody over my birthday sent me this card that had this funny duck face on the front. And I thought, okay, just the duck face, it's so funny. It made me laugh. That's entertainment.
Yeah.
Putting it on top of a card was creating influence and even well-being. And if you put something like sending this card repeatedly over time, or putting this card in a cartoon repeatedly over time, or putting this card, Daffy Duck or whatever, and now you're recommending that to others. Now we are creating this well-being in addition. So we've got the entertainment, we've got the influence, we've got the well-being, and it's just a matter of how are we applying this one concept in different ways. And so this is what I'm constantly looking at is how do we look at this from a different angle and then how do we apply it? And that's what I love about the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, because it's not just the knowing, it's the applying of this, because that is what I think makes the difference.
Love it.
Yeah. It's applying it, it's using it on Thursday.
Yes.
Using it on Thursday.
Okay, for those within the sound of our voices, how can they get in contact with you?
They can get in contact with me by going to my website. It's just KarynBuxman.com, Karyn with a Y. I love connecting on LinkedIn and Facebook. Find me there. I'm most places. As long as you spell my name, you're going to be able to find me. And there are ways that you can connect with me. I have weekly emails, uplift, and also application. Because again, I'm all about the application, but keeping it short, keeping it sweet, keeping it funny. Wherever two or more are gathered in the name of humor, I want to be part of that conversation.
Very nice. Karyn, this has been amazing having you on. Thank you. And so you just started a coaching session that's 6 weeks long.
Yeah.
Is there something in particular you'd like to hear from people in an email or from your website about your next coaching session?
Yeah, I offer it in the spring and the fall. And so for those who might be interested in the spring, if they email me, my email address is just Karyn@KarynBuxman.com. I'm happy to let them know about upcoming session that'll be occurring next spring, which will be new and improved. And if you want to have a virtual cup of coffee, I always
Yeah.
love hearing people's ideas and stories. Email me and we'll set up a virtual 15-minute coffee. You got to bring your own coffee, but AATH coffee cup. But yeah, love hearing your thoughts and ideas. I love hearing how people are applying humor. And if you are a professional listener, whether that's a leader, a coach, a nurse, an educator, whatever that may be, I'd love to hear an example of how you've used humor that worked or didn't work, because I think we learn as much by what didn't work as we learn by what did work.
Yep.
And so
For sure. Thank you, Karyn. And there's information in the show notes that show your website and your Facebook and your bio, and I mean your social media and your bio and all of that. People can go and click there to get more about you. And thank you. This has been wonderful.
It's been a pleasure. You know me. It's like my Greg got me a Chatty Cathy doll, because that was my favorite doll. Pull the string and it talks and talks. So, it's a dangerous thing to give a speaker the mic, but thank you for the opportunity. I love and talking about this, and I'm wishing you an abundance of humor and laughter as you go forward.
All right. This has been Laughbox, the official podcast of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. And we want to give a great big thank you to Karyn Buxman. So everybody, go out there, apply that humor, set your receptors on laugh.
That's right.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Laughbox is a production of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Visit us online at www.aath.org. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Music by Gary Rubio. For more information, www.garyrubiomusic.com.